Hello and welcome back to EUR Payroll and Beyond, a podcast series by Proclose, where we dive into the world of employer of record, payroll management, compliance, and global workforce solutions. I'm Mohit, your host for the series, and I'm thrilled to have you back here. I have Preet Kamal Gupta with me, who is the managing director for ANZ. In the last episode, we covered EOR in Australia. In this one, we dive right into payroll and talk about what payroll is in Australia. It's just not payroll, it's beyond just a paycheck. So the objective of this particular episode is we'll dive into Australia's payroll landscape, we'll talk about the compliance requirements, and we'll also be shedding light on some best practices. Welcome back, Preet.
Hi, Mohit. It's lovely to meet you again.
Same here, Preet.
Yes, how are you?
Doing good, doing good. And
Great.
I think,
Wonderful.
last episode we extensively covered what EOR was all about. I think this
Yeah.
one was slightly more extensive because when we
Mhm.
talk about payroll, I think there's a lot of compliances that come into play as well, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. So, shall we dive right into it?
Yeah, absolutely. See, there is so much we can talk about payroll, but with the time
Mhm.
limitations that we will try to cover as much as possible, including the best practices, like you said. And I think we sure dedicate this episode to the incredible payroll experts who follow the complex regulations and also make sure that everyone's paid on time. So, yeah, let's just get into it and we'll talk about the important parts of the payroll in Australia.
Awesome. Diving right into it then. So, the
That's
first
great.
one, payroll in Australia, how is it different from other countries?
Okay, so see, Australian payroll is very structured and compliant. When we talk about the main difference is the real-time wage reporting. So ATO, which is the Australian Taxation Office, they introduced STP, which again is Single Touch Payroll, to specifically streamline the process of reporting payroll information to the government. So that reporting will include the salaries, wages, the PAYG withholding, taxes, superannuation. So typically, employers report this information to the ATO each time they pay their employees. Like we discussed in a previous episode, the employers must also ensure, that they comply with the Fair Work Act 2009 and other relevant regulations.
Right? Sounds pretty extensive, Preet.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
seems like a more complex process than just going ahead and giving out paychecks.
Yeah, it's definitely not just about numbers. There is so much involved with the compliances and the reporting side of things.
Awesome. And what do you think are the top compliance risk companies face when running payroll in Australia?
Okay, so there are high penalties, for non-compliance in Australia, and it may also lead to the legal disputes as well. So missing the reporting deadlines have risks of interest charged by the department, because they will charge you interest as soon as you've missed any of the statutory payments or any sort of reporting lodgements. So the major compliance risks that we will talk about today are, for example, the errors or delay in the reporting to the ATO, when we just talked about STP. So when the STP is not submitted as per the guidelines, that is one of the major non-compliant factors. So the next one is not paying the correct and timely super guarantee. And also, as per the relevant year's superannuation, for example, the employer is not paying the super guarantee as per the current rate, which is 11.5% for this year. And then there is misinterpretation of modern awards or failing to pay the minimum wages, that could include overtime, penalty rates, and all those similar entitlements for the employees. And very important is misclassification of workers. That can be a major setback and can lead to legal and financial risks for the companies. For instance, a casual worker is classified as a permanent or vice versa. And similarly, an independent contractor is classified as an employee or vice versa. So, saying that in Australia, there are state regulated payroll taxes as well. To stay compliant, the reporting must be accurate, to avoid the revenue department's penalties. And we must also mention here the record keeping, data security, and those ever changing rules. So, with clear processes and regular updates, even the audit processes as well, the companies can avoid the compliance risks. So these are the main factors where we can, think about working regularly on the audit, regularly on the checks, so we're
Mhm.
not non-compliant.
Got it. Got it. There's only
Yeah.
so much that, a department, or probably, let's say in this case, a payroll
Hmm.
team would be able to kind of focus on. With
Yeah,
these regular updates coming in, I think it becomes extremely, extremely excruciating in terms of, keeping a check on all these compliances and regularities and ensuring that, it's on point.
that's right. That's right.
Mm. So I heard you saying superannuation a couple of times,
Yeah.
when I asked you the last two questions. And I believe it's a big part of Australian payroll, right? So
Hmm.
could you break down why it's so crucial?
Right, okay. So Australian Taxation Office says superannuation, or super, which we generally call it super, is money put aside by your employer over your working life for you to live on when you retire from work. So this is what ATO says. So employer pays these statutory contributions, which are mandatory, on top of your salary and wages. So like I said in the previous question as well, employers must contribute a percentage of each eligible employee's ordinary time earnings. So for this year, like it's 11.5% on top of their wages and salary to complying super fund, but will increase in coming years. So for example, from 1st July 2025, it'll increase to 12%. So superannuation must be paid at least quarterly with strict guidelines and deadlines as well. So each quarter, employer must pay employees at least once.
Got it. Got it. So it has to be done on a quarterly basis, is what you're ensuring, right?
It could be done monthly as well, but the deadline is 3 months. So once in 3 months, it must be paid by the employers. But there are new guidelines and regulations coming for the future years from ATO for the superannuation. So we'll talk about those when we have those guidelines.
Awesome. Sounds good. Uh, well, this is all about compliances and what has happened in Australia so far. But
Hmm.
then, what do you talk about tax obligations? I mean, how do businesses manage those tax obligations, and generally, where do they often go wrong?
Right. So, see, like we said, it's very complex, and understanding the tax obligations like POIG withholding, which is pay as you go withholding,
Mhm.
state payroll tax, single touch payroll, the fringe benefit tax requires a proactive approach, as any non-compliance can lead to errors and may incur further penalties by relevant departments. So the businesses ensure the registrations are done accurately as per the legislation. That is very important. However, due to the complexities, again, there are sometimes misinterpretations with the tax codes or late reportings or even incorrect STP filings. So these are the things which can go wrong.
Got it. Cool. Moving on to the next one. But then, you talk about tax obligation, what the companies could actually go wrong, and we have seen that, a lot of countries have a central system and a state system, right?
Right.
Predominantly in US as well, it happens. But then in Australia, how, these payroll tax obligations differ across Australian states and territories?
Okay, right. So when we talk specifically about the payroll tax, so it is state and territory tax paid by the employers when the total taxable wages of an employer exceeds a certain threshold amount. So
All
it
right.
is basically assessed on the gross Australian wages paid or payable to the employees by an employer. And it
Mhm.
is typically regulated and administered by the revenue departments in each state and territory. So they differ in terms of thresholds, rates, concessions, things like that. So each state has their own regulated taxes.
It seems like, the more we deep dive into it, I think
Yeah,
the more we are able to kind of, open up a can of worms, to be honest.
yeah,
I
yeah, I
think
agree.
a lot of experts out there are handling all of that pretty easily, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Awesome. So when we talk about, payroll tax obligations and, how it differs from different states and, different territories, uh,
Hmm.
could you also talk about, what are the penalties that, would
Right.
probably come basis a payroll non-compliance in Australia, and how can businesses generally avoid them?
Okay, right. So in our previous questions, we've understood the payroll complexities, like how deep and vast they are. The non-compliance obviously can result in significant penalties and fines. even legal risks very high. So these penalties could be related to fair work, superannuation, payroll tax, or any other reportings, relevant to the business based on their industry. So to avoid this, the businesses should comply with the relevant legislation and must seek professional advice for accurate and streamlined payroll process. Just because it is so vast and there is so many technicalities in payroll, and the rules keep changing, so it's very important that we have that professional advice, the expertise as well. So they should stay up to date with the legislation changes. Most importantly, they must be aware that obligations based on their business structure or industry, because different industries may have different tax codes, things like that.
Got it. Makes sense. And I would not want to go there, but then this is something that I can't really avoid. I believe
Sure.
technology as we know it, it has been evolving like anything, and AI has been the talk of the town, in
Hmm.
different business lines, different industries, all across. Uh,
Mhm.
what do you think of technology playing a role in streamlining payroll in Australia?
Right. Okay. I think it's a very important question, because we are living in the world of automations now. So the technology has remarkably streamlined the payroll processes, not just in Australia. I guess it's when we talk about the global processes as well. So in Australia as well, it is playing an important part. The payroll management has become faster. The payroll softwares are now ATO compliant and enabled for the real time STP reporting. So you don't have to do the manual work. You can just directly link it, with those automated software systems. So
Right.
yeah, and that somehow reduces the errors as well. So the softwares now integrate with the super clearing houses for on-time payments. They also integrate with the accounting systems, with expert reviewing those taxation side of things for that particular payroll. And we also, use the also automated award interpretations. So in our previous episodes, we talked a lot about modern award system in Australia. So that is also integrated, automated, so you can interpret them with the software. So collectively, this has significantly improved the processes and reduced the risks of penalties and fines, because you could just do few things, automated. So what's Proclose, Mohit? We talk about Proclose so much. So what is Proclose? We are a serve tech company providing the
Right.
technical solutions and services to our clients with our payroll expertise. Yes, the best automation tools are available, but we're here for the risk management, audit, and any other oversight. So with technology, expertise is also very important.
That's exactly what I was, coming down to, Preet, that,
Yeah,
we've been hearing a lot of things around ChatGPT and a lot of things, and I have
yeah.
no personal opinion towards it. But then the fact
Mhm.
remains that, even with AI coming into picture, even with the technology advancing so much, there is
Yeah,
a human intervention that is required to kind of run these systems smoothly and ensure that, there are no, regulation miss or
yeah,
compliance miss that can lead into penalties, which can be in millions, right? So
that's
I also feel that even though the technology is there is a lot of scope that the human intervention would improve upon it, and ensure that payroll and EOR and compliances all
mhm.
fall into the right categories accordingly. Now,
Absolutely.
moving on, I this is something that comes from the fact that there are a lot of highly regulated industries
Yeah.
across the, and all these highly regulated industries are something which the government has hands on, and is kind of
Mhm.
seeped into it and figuring out what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
But what are the unique considerations for payroll processing in Australia in highly regulated industries?
Right. So I understand this is also a very important question, I think, because in Australia, there are added layers of complexity in the highly
Mhm.
regulated industry. So these industries, are often governed by enterprise agreements or any other industry-specific rules, because there are so many industries we talk about here. So the
Right.
employers must have the relevant licenses and registrations to ensure they keep the compliances in check. For example, the healthcare, mining, aviation, construction, and many such industries, those big ones that we talk about, are highly regulated. You know, they are usually subject to external audits. There are union regulations and other regulatory checks due to data security, record keeping, and the correct application of wages, penalty rates, even industry specific taxation rules as well. Just because they are huge, there are checks. There are the wages, they differ so much within the company, within the hierarchy, that there has to be external audits as well. That's what the rules are set by Australian Taxation Office and other specific relevant departments.
Got it. Got it. So let me reiterate to our listeners that
Mm.
even though that we are making it sound like a breeze, that there are compliances and there are
Yeah.
processes to check, it still is a complex. And when Preet has been saying that it is a very complex process, it all the more emphasizes on the fact that there is a need of some experts who can help guide us through all these challenges and ensure that we are falling in the right categories, and
Yeah.
not attract any penalties for that matter.
Yes, I totally agree. It's extremely important that the expertise is used, not just taxation, but HR and other relevant payroll factors as well. So it's extremely important that we have those kind of expertise in place.
Got it. Got it. So just the last two before I let you go.
Sure.
How does Proclose help businesses optimize payroll management and ensure compliance? Since we are talking about
Yeah.
Proclose, why not also talk about how we help optimize payroll management and ensure compliances?
Yeah, absolutely. See, Proclose offers streamlined solutions to manage and process the payroll efficiently and accurately in Australia and also across other multiple jurisdictions. So, when we talk about Australia specifically, we provide expert guidance on complex matters related to salaries and wages, work classification, superannuation, tax calculations, the statutory payments, which could be monthly or as set up by the ATO, and the reporting requirements as well, which are linked to those certain payments. So we ensure the on time payroll while keeping regulations and legislative updates in check and making sure we follow all those rules and regulations set up by the departments. So our end to end solutions with added technology sync with our company's vision of trust, care, and excellence. So that's why, when we talk about technology, it must be followed by the expertise as well.
Last but not the least, before we kind of wrap this episode up, any myth, just one myth maybe, that you
Okay.
would like to debunk about Australian payroll?
Okay. So it's a very interesting question, I think. So we think that payroll is automated, like we have been talking about in the previous questions as well, and
Right.
it's just the numbers. And we think that it does not require much insight, but the reality is Australian compliances are complex and requires ongoing management due to ongoing changing rules, the worker classifications, the misinterpretations can lead to significant compliance risks. So payroll is not just about calculating wages, it requires constant monitoring and updates and audit checks. By outsourcing these complex payroll processes to experts like us, businesses can avoid the costly mistakes, and can have the peace of mind. So this is what I think is very important, that payroll is not just calculating wages, it's not just numbers. It is extremely vast process where expert payroll processes help the businesses.
Absolutely, Preet, and I think I second that because honestly speaking, I've seen our payroll teams work across different time zones and ensure that everything is falling in order. And I think it is extremely crucial as well that the
Hmm.
experts are hired for this particular job, and that's where I think Proclose can be plugged in into any organization for that matter in Australia as well,
Yeah.
because it kind of fits right into the alley of ensuring that your regulatory, all the regulations and everything and compliances are met,
Hmm. Yep.
all the while also ensuring that the payroll process is absolutely streamlined and everybody is getting the paycheck on time.
That's right. I totally agree with that.
Awesome. Then I think we shall call it a wrap before we next resume for the next episode, and I
Okay.
think that'll be soon as well. Thank you, Preet, for joining us and ensuring that you provide an in-depth look at what payroll is in Australia. And as I said, it's not just payroll; it's beyond just a
Yeah.
paycheck. I think that
Yeah.
that kind of sums this episode up.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me, Mohit.
Thank you, Preet.